This is A Line Around Your Thoughts, a podcast that centers on conversations with artists, writers, musicians, and creatives from around the Inland Northwest. I'm your host, E.J. Iannelli. We are joined today in the Rogue Heart Media Studio by Zuill Bailey, who is here in his role not just as an internationally touring cellist, but also as the artistic director of the Northwest BachFest. So welcome, Zuill.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have been eagerly awaiting our meeting in person, simply because I wanted to tell you face to face that I saw the Tales of Hemingway at the Spokane Symphony, and I think I wrote to Gertrude Harvey, who organizes the Connoisseur concerts. I had emailed her and I had said, if my respect for Zuill as a musician and as a cellist was 10 out of 10 before this, we have now turned the dial up to 11 because it was just such a phenomenal performance. Like, transformative, and I don't use those words lightly. It was. I don't know how you felt it went, but I thought it was brilliant.
Well, thank you for that. What's so shocking about that is that I've been coming to Spokane for some time, and I have been presenting concerts with Northwest BachFest for some time, and very few people have seen that side of me because that's what I do. Beyond the Hemingway, the Doherty, I play concertos. And I go around and I join orchestras and I play in those kinds of concert halls. And everyone has been comparing it to the intimacy of our venues at Barrister and the churches around town and places like that. And I mean, I told everybody to hold on to their hats, but no one knew that it was going to be, that exclamation point that the Doherty brings. Yeah. And I appreciate that because I felt it. I get to face the audience. And I get to see what's going on, and everyone watching like they're strapped to a freight train, which is how I feel.
And you've done Elgar here, if I'm not mistaken, fairly recently.
Well, this was my third performance. So the first one, I think in 2014 or 15, was Schumann Concerto.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is very different. And the Tchaikovsky Rococo Variations paired with Eckhart. And then I came back and did Elgar, I think 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We were already talking about how to do something and twist the knife a little bit. And I said, well, with Doherty and the letters from Lincoln, the Lincoln letters that he wrote for Thomas Hampson a few years ago for Spokane, I said, this would be very interesting. And I said, you'll not find a more exciting piece. You won't.
Yeah.
And what's even crazier is that on first hearing, most pieces, as wonderful as they are, you need a few hearings just to kind of go, the magnitude of them. This is laid straight out.
It is. And it wasn't until James Lowe was sat in that seat and we were talking about the upcoming performance. I think he was here in advance of that concert. Yeah. And I hadn't realized that was the performance, or that piece was what netted you the Grammy. Yeah. And so when they say Grammy award winning,
that's it.
That's the one there. And man, what a better distinction. Yeah.
I think it shows the value of the piece, because the piece won a Grammy, the CD won a Grammy, and I won a Grammy to play the piece. So it won all 3 categories of classical music for that area that year, and I'm not sure that's ever been done before. And to be a part of the process of it being built for me, and because of my cello, and because of my playing style. It really, that's been 10 years.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. 2015 is when we recorded that, and it came out in 16, and then won the Grammy in 17. But anyway.
Yeah, it was an absolutely phenomenal piece, and it is one of those that is instantly accessible, and the fact that it has literary underpinnings just, I think, enhances the enjoyment all the more. But he really pulled out all the stops. Did the composer Michael Doherty, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, and the virtuosity that he demanded of you was, I think that was what made it. It was physically exhausting. It was emotionally exhausting, physically exhausting. But what a piece!
I keep using the word cinematic. because I really do feel like I'm in 4 chapters of a movie, and the orchestra is the environment and the setting, and I'm trying to survive. You know, if you knew the story behind the Hemingway, you would know that he put himself at the front of every stressful situation, always, and that's how I feel. And when I first played it, I just went up and gave Michael Dougherty a huge hug and just said, "Thank you so much for this experience. I can't believe that I got to be the first." So I think it will be around for a long time. Thank you for mentioning it. I think it's wonderful to end a symphonic season like that, especially in a place that feels like home, which is Spokane for me. To look at all my friends there cheering on what I call the heartbeat of any city, which is the symphony. It was quite a moment.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad you shared it with us, because it was the first time that I had really engaged with the piece. I had been somewhat familiar with it beforehand, but having it presented, and it was the whole program was just phenomenal. So what a way to end the season. But rather than dwell on the past, I also want to kind of look ahead to the future. And we've got these concerts coming up with music in Manito, and these fall under the Northwest BachFest umbrella. So you have the standard BachFest concerts, which generally take place at Barrister Winery. Then you've got these music in Manito concerts, which do what they say on the tin. They're held in Manito Park. And then there's the Afterglow component.
Right.
About what is the difference between these three? Like, each one has a different flavor. So what is the intent behind each one, or the experience that you're trying to capture?
When I was asked to be the artistic director of Northwest BachFest, the first thing I wanted to do is smash the mold. I wanted to have venues specific to the programming, and not just always do the same venue, and not always have to do the same venue, and not always have to hire the same people. And so everything that I came to the table with, I just said, listen, I'd like to increase our series, which lasted a couple of weeks, the festival, Northwest BachFest. From about 5 concerts, I said, let's make it year round. Let's give consistency and bring it to the schools and do all these other things, and have it be everywhere all the time. And over the course of the next 10 years, obviously when you do that, you can't be as boutique as all Bach. So the first struggle was to put Bach in some capacity on every single show. And then the second wave was to do things that were inspired by Bach. And then the third phase was everyone is inspired by Bach. He was the alpha and he was the omega. Everything was built by Bach's work and the structure that he created. And then there would be echoes of or inspired by, and then there would be a Bach concert.
Right.
So early, 8 or 10 years ago, Vern Wyndham asked if I would consider succeeding him at the Mozart on a Summer's Eve, which was the old version, the chapter before of Music in Manito. And the first thing I wanted to do was not be composer specific. So I was like, let's just make it music in Manito. But I want to figure out a way to make Music in Manito our Hollywood Bowl. So the first thing I did was shift the audience around where we've got the long lawn. I said, we need to get a big stage. We need to get some screens, and we need to make this something that appeals to many facets of our community, not just the classical lovers or the whatever lovers. So here we go. So we have our Bach concerts. Generally, you would think Bach would be in a church. We have the capacity to do that. But I also like multifaceted experiences where you incorporate some kinds of foods or things like that, or sensorial outside. So going back to being site specific, outside, inside, churches, wineries, pop-ups. When you have the capacity to program anything, anywhere, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling, because I'm not in a box, literally using the word Bach over and over. But, and that's where our organization has kind of evolved to. Specifically with Music in Manito, we had such success early on by kind of doing some wonky things that we wanted to have an encore, but it was getting too late in the park. So because of the sun or the wind and all the things that come with being outside, we thought, well, let's just program it's kind of like, and I was a part of this, so we can talk about that later, MTV Unplugged. Where you tone it down, you bring it in its raw form into a smaller elitist venue, hard to get tickets, et cetera, as opposed to the blown out lawn venue. So that's how Afterglow started.
I see.
And it actually started with a group, an oud, a guitar, and a cello, with Cicely Parnas, who came in, and they were so successful that we added a concert at Barrister, and one of their pieces was called Afterglow. That's where that comes from. It's a perfect title, but it just stuck because it's the afterglow of great success. So if you want to go into detail about the programming, I'm trying in a vast, great scale, music in Manito, to appeal to a larger audience that can come at different times. I've created a two-part show. One for the ones who'd like to be a little bit more civilized and come in there with their tables and food and whatever and sit there.
Wines and cheeses.
That's right. And watch the sunset. I'm one of those, by the way. And then as the sun goes down, the adults go to bed and the kids come out to play. So I've been trying to increase the second half, the second show, to being wonky, funky. Here we go with the jumbotrons, with all the things to get those trees shaking. And so that's what we've done for the past years, but I've been increasingly getting more wonky on purpose, just to see what it does and how it catches on. And here we are.
Yeah, and I think Simply Three was a band that you have championed, and they came through to great acclaim, I would think, and both popular and critical. And I think this upcoming concert really epitomizes this two-part strategy that you're doing, where, well, when you say wonky, and you're getting increasingly more wonky, it's not just with the second show, but I find even with the first show,
I'm just trying not to be sophisticated words guy. You might also notice that I'm using the same instruments in both sides of the show. Right. So when we have Break of Reality, when we have the trio that created Afterglow, when we have the Biribá Union, Mark and Maggie O'Connor, that were here last year, it's violins, cellos, bass in electric form, a singer, in this case this year, who uses the body to create other sounds, beatboxing. It's a twist. It's a twist, so it's not in a box. And that's very important to me, because when people go into music and education in schools, I don't want them to think of an instrument as being limited.
Right.
I would like them to see band that can do anything. It can do jazz, it can do rock, it can be, the band Chicago. Strings. They can play in the Beatles, they can play with Metallica, they can do these covers, they can do all this stuff. And it could be jazz fiddling, it could be Appalachian fiddling. A bass doesn't mean a stand-up bass. It's the same thing. You could have it be an electric bass and be funk. I'm trying to blow this music thing wide open and say, thank God for Bach, because that's how it all started, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and with this upcoming concert, you've got someone like Astor Piazzolla, who wasn't bound by genre. He looked everywhere, and then he was known for the tango, but he was also known for incorporating other genres into the tango. And so this concert that you're going to be performing coming up, that I would say, I guess, inspired by Vivaldi, but doesn't incorporate Vivaldi. But he developed his own four-season suite that he cobbled together from pieces that had been discrete and composed for other things, but then brought them together into a single suite.
Well, there's definitely a connective tissue in between all of these and all the facets of it, from the performers that are returning to the fact that we're having music that by people who embrace the uniqueness of who they are.
Yeah.
One of my sayings that I live by, and I remind myself every day because, I find dealing with young people and the world now is that so many people are looking out that they're not looking in. They're looking at everyone's life, and it's becoming a kind of a gray melting pot, boiling pot, whatever you call it, of less flavor. Mm-hmm. And where I'm going with that is, one of the sayings is, the day you can embrace the uniqueness of who you are is the day you no longer have competition. And why that resonates to me is that we are all so different, but we all try to be accepted and we all try to be liked. And these kinds of things in social media is a real problem for that, because it's all smoke and mirrors. But when you have a composer like Astor Piazzolla, who really did kind of create a whole new sound world and way to hear music with different instruments, and it was so him, there's no more competition. And where he studied out in the world, whenever someone heard him play, they're like, go home and do what you do. Don't try to learn what we do. And those were some masterful mentors in his life. So to showcase that is important to me, to showcase a new kinds of sound with instruments, cello, violin, viola, et cetera, bass, using techniques that people have not heard yet on that series. But also featuring a violinist that we love, Helen Kim, who's been here before playing the Vivaldi Four Seasons, and that's important to me as well. In addition to having familiar faces on stage, which are members of the Spokane Symphony, which we also showcased in the past and continue to do. So it's, I asked a mentor one time who his favorite performers in history were, and he said, my friends. So that really stuck as a curator. Always bring in familiarity in the performer's realm, so people trust their stories. Mm-hmm. So I'm very conscious of that as well. Don't give all question marks. Don't bring in someone who no one knows playing something that no one knows. It could be something that people can't wait to hear, like a big Beethoven work or something work by someone they don't know, but don't make both sides.
Right.
So I hope that with Helen Kim's popularity around here and members of the Spokane Symphony, myself, I'll be joining as well. In addition to the second half, Biribá Union, which we can talk about, there's a lot to look forward to, an incredible variety.
Yeah, I do like the Easter egg that Helen Kim was here performing Vivaldi's Four Seasons and then comes back to do the Piazzolla. So a little wink to those who are in the know.
Yeah.
And this piece, the Piazzolla comes through in every single movement. You definitely get the flavor of the tango. And, you and I were talking beforehand about what defines a tango. And I had said, is it something like a waltz, which is generally going to be in 3/4 time. And so that defines a waltz. And the tango is just one of those things that you kind of know it when you hear it, because it's so rooted in dance. Yeah. And so I don't know if you wanted to talk about maybe the tango flavor of some of these movements that he's turned into seasons.
When I was at Juilliard, I had to take a rhythm course, and in rhythm becomes meter, and in meter becomes dance, and of course we had to learn the dances of Bach and dances in general, but we had to dance them. It wasn't just learning and conducting, like we had to move our bodies. Oh, wow. And you realize when you start to do the dance steps of a courant or a minuet or a gigue or whatever, they're very held back and I don't know, we use the word civilized, but they're just quaint.
Yeah.
A gigue gets a little bit sort of raucous, but a saraband, Spanish Latin flavor, like South America. There's the saraband alludes to something else. I don't know if it's the tempo, if it's going to beat two, if it's all the things, but the body became very different in the movements. When I hear a tango, come on. You think sensuality, you think intimacy, you think very close, where there are no kind of boundaries, and it's singular to that, which we didn't dance in that class. We didn't get that far, darn it.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the specific meter of it, but the use of the techniques of playing on the other side of the bridge, like
yeah, and those percussive elements.
yes,
yeah.
and you've got, no one did that before. Even someone like Paganini, who created sound effects from the heavens and hell on an instrument, didn't do that. So that was a completely new creation that is singular to me. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, they copied Piazzolla and the tangos. And but as I said, a tango does not mean one style. It means it can be lots of different tempi.
Yeah, and like you said, you're establishing these instrumental parallels between the two concerts, but I find there's also kind of a spiritual kinship between the two pieces, between Astor Piazzolla, who was adventurous and was unique, and then Biribá Union, who, I was familiarizing myself with their, I can't even say their discography because they don't even have an album out yet. These guys are pretty fresh, but they have a big YouTube presence, a lot like Simply 3, where
huge. Yeah. So here's the backstory that you don't even know. I know Mike Block well. Mike Block is a fellow cellist. I adore him. He's a wonderful, classically trained cellist. He decided he wanted to he wanted to sing a little bit, and he wanted to compose a little bit and do some other genre stuff. Because of his natural talent and his ability to do things, again, that were unique to himself, he was the other cellist and is the other cellist for the Silk Road Ensemble, other than Yo-Yo Ma. Yo-Yo Ma discovered him in the ensemble, or put him in the ensemble. And Mike not only went in there and became that guy, but he also started, I don't want to be strapped to a chair. So he strapped the cello to his chest. Yeah, no one can visualize this, but he walks around. He literally, it's called the block
it looks
strap.
like it floats on
and
his front.
But it's spectacular. And then he sings, and then he does all of those same, actually, interestingly, the same techniques for Piazzolla on the cello.
Exactly.
While he's doing, it's called chopping. He taught me that word, the chop, which also Mark Amaggio Connor did last year, and. So he said, I happened to be in New York over the holidays, and he said, I've started a new group, and we're doing a kind of a showcase in January, this past January. Would you like to come? And I was like, tell me about the group. He goes, well, it's with a kind of a guitar beatboxer, singer guy, and a Uruguayan electric bassist, and me on the cello. And I went, beatbox? Wow. And he said, I think you'll like it.
Yeah, that's the USP of that group. You talk about the electric bass, okay, cello, okay, those, I can see those pairing. And then as soon as you introduce the beatbox, it's like, oh, my interest is piqued.
But this guy, it's like all I expect. Now I assume he's going to have cymbals between his legs. All the sounds that he does, what he does. So they walk into this venue, and I'm sitting there. I'm going to be there 10 minutes, just as respect to my friend. And 2 hours later, I haven't moved. And the last thing I remember prior to 2 hours later was, I've lost all track that this is a man making these sounds. Yeah. It's a percussion ensemble of 10 with cymbal sounds, distortion, bass drum, snare drum, electronic sounds, in addition to the slapping the bass, in addition to the vocal-like cello, in addition to the guy making the sounds also plays the guitar, in addition to there's a cello that's making the chop sounds, percussion also, and Mike's singing, and the girl does too. It's crazy. And I literally I stayed for the end, and I went running back, and I said, please tell me you're available for July. Please tell me you're available for July. And 4 days later, we got the thumbs up. So they are super new.
Yeah, it's I think Chris Styles Bacon is the name of the beatboxer, and one of the things that I was really impressed by. So he's doing all these incredible things with his voice and evoking. If you closed your eyes, you would think that were actual percussion.
Absolutely.
And then one of the things he was doing is he was taking the microphone and placing it against his throat to evoke the sound of a bass drum.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, if we hadn't marveled at the capabilities of the human body before, then yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was blown away. He's also from Washington, D.C., and we had a nice conversation. I'm kind of grew up in that sort of area. And so we had a nice conversation about that. And I said, the world needs to hear this group. And let's start with Spokane. I mean, it's crazy. So again, we're going to have actually Cézanne's Poet, the Muse and the Poet to start off the concert before the Piazzolla. It's just a very, very, Camille Cézanne wrote a piece for cello and violin, and we're doing it with piano. I wanted to lull people into normalcy for about 14, 15 minutes. And then again, kind of turn the volume sideways a little bit to show Piazzolla and the next 45 minutes of very cool. Oh my God, this is great. And then I'm going to break the knob off.
Yeah.
And that's the second half. I'll be like, guys, get ready. Here we go. And then Biribá Union. Is it Biribá or is it Biribá?
I think it's Biribá with the accent on the A.
Yeah, my fault. But Biribá Union, when they come out, again, that's when the sun will go down.
Yeah.
The jumbotrons will light up, and we get that Parks concert that I see Spokane needing, wanting, and each year at the back of the park there are people up on the hill that lawn chairs, and that's they're sneaking in. I shouldn't say that because people are going to not do that, but I see people sneaking behind trees because you can't not hear this stuff, and it's outside. So you're driving down the street, you're in your house. And you're coming over, like, let's go. And I guarantee you, it's the kids dragging their parents when they hear sounds like Mark and Maggie O'Connor, Break of Reality, Simply 3. It was awesome.
Yeah, and this to me is the illustration of the doors being thrown open wider, because I think when James was here, or James Lowe was here, we talked about the classical music, and you can't have a conversation about classical music without also talking about folks who make certain assumptions about what classical music is. And so with a concert like this, it really shows that how genre-defying music is, full stop.
I always trick people because usually at the end of classical recitals, I'll say, now I'm going to play some new music for you. And then I play something of John Williams, living composer John Williams, who writes some of the most glorious melodies you'll ever hear, catchy tunes, and has succeeded in the film industry unlike anyone, and is still alive. Again, people just need to stop putting things in a box. And that's the wonderful thing about the internet, is that we now see that, and cover bands and people like that who play things, and music is music, and kind of like Bach in a really weird way, bringing it back. When it's great, it can be played on any instrument in any form, and it's still great. You still recognize it and you love it. It doesn't have to be specific to that. So when you hear these great pieces of music played with a beatboxer instead of a drum set, you would never know. Like you said, I just shut your eyes and look at the stars and be very grateful that we have music in Manito.
Yeah, and I think it was Eckhart Proy, who said that we were having a conversation, and he said, I kind of give you permission to let your mind drift during a concert. You don't have to be in rapt attention the entire time. And I was always grateful for that, because I find that my thoughts get going I'm sitting there.
We're not even there anymore. That's not a concert to me anymore, because we are so used to sitting on our couch at home, eating popcorn, having something to drink, kicking our legs around, looking at our iPads. Like, we're so multisensory now that to sit there in a concert venue and be told to not make a sound for 2 hours, good luck. So you have to also ask the question, or tell them, the audience, now we're going to work on your imagination. You can use your eyes, and we can listen with your eyes, but shut your eyes. Use your ears, make it a soundtrack to see what it evokes here and there. Now even major concert halls have sippy cups, and they're starting to have other things you can bring in, because this kind of music is the soundtrack that kind of evokes so much. And when it's not amplified, this is the problem. And I tell young people this as well. It's not like we're asking people to behave at classical concerts. We're just trying to ensure you don't miss the magic. And the magic is the soft stuff. But when you get outside, very different, because it's amplified. So come to Music at Manito, make a ruckus, go run. What I also loved is last year we were playing, there were families playing Frisbee in the back lawn and running around and talking, and it didn't bother anyone because it was a bigger experience. So Northwest BachFest tries to give the intimacy of Barrister and the churches and all these other things, and that has its own set of, I don't want to say rules, but its own set of how to experience it. But that's why I'm very, very thrilled about Music in Manito, because there really are no rules for this one.
Yeah. And speaking to that point, we have the doors thrown open wide, and then we scale down for Afterglow.
That's right.
And everything becomes a lot more intimate.
That's right.
And so, the Afterglow concert that follows these is going to be one that still features you, still features Helen Kim.
That's right.
You're going to be performing a Bach piece, the double violin concerto, but arranged for cello and violin
by a cellist in Break of Reality, Cicely Parnas, who was here, played on the series, has also played at the first Afterglow concert. She's a wonderful young cellist who's composing and arranging and performing. She lives in Germany now. In fact, she went to Germany right after Spokane, and she flew in here we got her to come from Berlin to go back to Germany to play on our series a few years ago. But again, one of my needs is that my family here in Spokane gets to know the artists. The problem with Music in Manito, the only problem, is that there's really you're going to see the show, but we don't get to hang out.
Yeah.
It's too chaotic, but we can at Barrister. And that's what I love, is that, the whole show is literally hanging out, and there's sets. And then in between sets, we're having glasses of wine, we're hanging out, eating food. And then after the show, we all sit there for an hour or two and just chill out. So you can ask the guy about how he creates his sounds, or the instruments people use, and that's what makes it super familiar and people wanting to know more.
Yeah, and with this Bach piece, it's a piece that dates from Bach's time, and yet a very modern arrangement. If Cicely Parnas has arranged it, and what's interesting is that it almost sounds like it was written for these two instruments. Yeah. You would never know that it has been scaled down to these. I mean, it's a really gorgeous piece.
It's very similar to Dmitri Sitkovetsky's arrangement of the Bach-Goldberg variations. I mean, you hear the piano version of the Goldberg variations, it sounds like that's the way it goes, but it was actually a harpsichord piece. Then you take the piano rendition and you put it for string orchestra. It's still a harpsichord piece. And then you take the string orchestra and you pare it down to a string trio or string quartet, which we've both had here. And that's what Cicely Parnas did so brilliantly, is to pare down something that at its core is perfection into a duo.
And what's also cool is you had mentioned kind of the intimacy of this venue, is that audiences who might have seen Biribá Union the night before on the big stage in Manito will then get to see them in a much more intimate, a much smaller scale venue. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about just the different experience that you're hoping to get from Afterglow than, relative to the music in Manito with Biribá Union.
Well, again, just very different experience because of just the scale of it. We can only put maybe 200 people in Barrister Winery, and we're on top of each other. We're like literally right there. You can see the perspiration. You can see the looks from the audiences. I'm assuming it'll have to be amplified somewhat because of the beatboxing, things like that, of course, the electric bass, but it's going to be minimal. it's not going to be overkill there. And of course the cello and violin will not be. And so you can't compare the two. I wish in a way that we could do the first one first and then do Afterglow first and then the large scale. But to ramp it up, because there's a in programming, one of the advices I was given is it's hard to go back when you've heard the sounds. So when you, it'd be like going to the IMAX and then looking at something on your phone the next day. It's just a different experience altogether. And the large scale massiveness of music in Manito is going to be spectacular. So I would say the thing that's going to be the feather in the cap is the intimacy and the personal nature of the stories, and the fact that we break it open for questions. So it's really a conversation. We could never do that large scale.
Yeah, it's almost, I think VIP has certain connotations, but it is almost like the VIP experience in a way. Because
Absolutely.
You're getting, up close.
It's like a backstage pass.
Yeah.
That's exactly that's what we should call it.
Backstage
pass.
pass.
Man, I missed that.
Well, I think Afterglow works simply because it does take place after these larger
like
scale.
that. I like the Afterglow too, but backstage pass is, that's kind of cool.
And so how does all this fit in for where you're hoping to develop BachFest? Is this the realization? Are we at sort of a peak where
Yes.
you hope to continue? Or is this, only the start of something that you continue to build to?
We're at a tipping point. Totally. We've been here for many years. And in a way, a blessing of the pandemic was that it gave us time to really realize what we can do and our potential, and how to restructure it in a branding sense. Because to be very honest, in the programming we're here, I want to experiment with other kinds of venues and other things that really show different angles of music, still having a very thick classical presence, but having the ability for jazz and blues and other things that fuse together, because they all spawned out of that. Classical. I mean, all of those things came out of the fact, even just the use of like the saxophone. It's in Rachmaninoff. I mean, everybody loves this stuff, but most public doesn't see how it's relevant. So I've shown by example. We have outgrown or confused with Northwest Bach being our logo, but our content is going to continue to be the same and continue to evolve. And there are some big things to come that are in the works.
Excellent. I look forward to speaking in the future on what they are. And, this would be a point where we would kind of wrap up. But a component of this podcast is that we have a lightning round at the end. And this is, I know, don't panic.
Okay.
These are nothing that's necessarily going to put you on the spot knowledge-wise. But it's just to tease out a different side of Zuill that we got to see a different side of you at the Spokane Symphony concert. But these are, a little more freeform. Okay?
Okay.
So the first is an either or: carrot sticks or potato chips.
Oh, potato chips.
Potato chips? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. You might be health conscious. So.
Oh, please. I'm in a whole chapter of finding the best French fry. I mean, everywhere I go, I order French fries.
Okay. So
everywhere I go.
That leads to where are you finding the best French fries?
There's a way to make French fries. It's a double battered, frozen, then fried again. I ask the chefs. I'm like, you've got to give me that. What makes that one different? Not shoestring, not my favorite, but not steak fries. So potatoes. Oh, please. It's going to be a problem probably in my demise, but. Right now, it's working for me.
Yeah, and what better way to go than having sampled all these different varieties of French fry?
Yes.
And so where are you finding the best? Is there a city where you say, if you go here, you really got to check out the fries?
No, it's just who's running the kitchen and how they do it.
Yeah.
It would be hard to say. And I've been in some of the greatest restaurants that serve not good fries. But it's also particular to what I like.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to be a greasy spoon in order to get the French fries just right.
I also am kind of digging the whole balsamic vinaigrette mayonnaise thing these days.
Oh,
you done that? Have you the balsamic?
I tend to mix Frank's hot sauce and mayo, and
I love their motto. We're not going to talk about the motto, but yeah, it goes on everything. I put it on everything. I love Frank's hot sauce. Also, Old Bay. Old Bay seasoning. Check it out.
Yeah, I have checked it out, but I've only ever used it in kind of a seafood context.
No.
Over fries,
just sprinkle it
works.
over the. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, a culinary.
Is that it? That's it.
Who knew? No. There's a little more, but I'm glad we went.
That
down
was
that
easy.
Road. So we often focus on the best, your favorite, etc. I'd like to know your worst concert experience. You can speak in generalities if you don't want anybody to be offended, but I'm interested to know a concert experience that you had that just didn't go well, or that you thought, man, I wish that had gone better.
Yeah, one comes to mind. It was humiliating. I'm going to be very general, but basically I learned the piece very quickly. I traveled overseas. I basically played in the basement of a castle. The concert was based in the basement of a castle where there was no light, and there was also a breeze coming across the crypt that I was playing in. And so not only could I not see my music, but it was blowing shut, and I had to keep stopping. And and it was a big deal. I just was like,
The concert from the crypt, though. I mean, I think that makes
no. It's not. It was a French castle.
A French castle. Okay.
Anyway, there was that, and also I've dealt with some issues with massive jet lag before, where you don't realize how far Australia is away.
Yeah.
There's no way to prepare for the weight of the jet lag unless you go 10 days early, because the third day of getting off a plane where you did not sleep on the plane, trying to function hanging upside down, the weight, and also the torture of what it does to the brain and not being able to remember, and it's horrible. So
I'm sure it's a phenomenon that has been addressed before in other conversations, but it's one that has perpetually fascinated me. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how James does it. I don't know how so many of the other touring musicians do it, where they are in a different city, every third night.
Yeah.
And that must be one of the hardest aspects of the job. Is
it's
the jet
not
lag.
a few hours. A few hours doesn't. I mean, you get used to anything, right? Mm-hmm. But it's when I was young and I didn't know that 17 hours was gonna. I mean, the concert's at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And and again, I didn't think that sleep deprivation would be a torture technique. And I didn't know that you can see things. You start seeing things. You start, it really is a problem. So, you live and you learn. And as you get older, you just go, well, I need to travel. I can't take that date. I can't just run out and take that date. I have to be there a few days beforehand, and you just prepare for those things. But it's the worst things that I've ever had were just where the expectations weren't met.
Yeah.
And I thought it was okay, and it really wasn't. And it never happened again. So that's what we have to. We never learn from a good experience. I mean, I never did that again.
Yeah, and I think it's good life advice, because not everything goes 100% perfect 100% of the time, and so it's just
it's a survival game. So you just have to prepare. I over prepare, and I have for decades now. Over prepare, and then it makes it very easy when you get to a lot of problems.
Okay, so this is, if we imagine the another path for Zuill Bailey. So if you weren't a cellist, what do you see yourself doing? Did you have another passion that you might have pursued if you hadn't gone to Juilliard and gone down this path?
Okay, I'll tell you something that no one knows. I loved monsters as a kid. I loved Rick Baker, the makeup artist who did American Werewolf in London and all those movies. I loved building things and creating new faces and masks and all of those things. And I thought, but I want to help people. So I'm going to be a plastic surgeon. And so in fifth grade, I was playing cello and everything was going fine. But I really thought I wanted to go into kind of a morph of special effects
Right.
but
right.
in medicine to help recreate people who have problems. And I was in. I would even go into detail all the things that I was like trying to like be specific and learn certain things. And then I had a bike injury, and I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, and they had to sew up something on my arm, and I can't see blood. Can't do it. I can't do it. I fainted on the spot, and I don't remember fainting. And then I thought maybe it was a fluke. And then I tried to watch myself get a shot about 2 years later. Can't do it.
Well, I mean, that's a good, if you needed a definitive sign you were on the right path.
It was no, I know. I'm saying it was a 100% absolute. I don't have that. They're performers.
Yeah.
They can't perform. Meaning, you go to school. People ask me all the time, should I be a performer? Should I want to be a soloist or this or that? I'm like, you should try. Because you might find out that you're actually not built for it. Going back to fatigue or warming up or getting on stage and playing whenever they want you to, not when you're ready, which is,
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, I tell people this all, just, you have to try to know. But when you know, and then you don't have any regrets. So.
Last question. Now, you have already made reference to some of your wonkier tendencies, looking for more adventurous music and bringing it to town. What is something that's on your playlist? It used to be your iPod playlist. That's no longer valid. So I guess your Spotify playlist. What is on your playlist that somebody would maybe cause them to look twice or find really surprising? Like, is there something on there that they say, that song or that band, like, what? Really, Zuill?
Well, the two things come to mind. I'm sure this is typical to everybody, but I love like one-hit wonders from the 80s.
Yeah.
Because it just gives me huge flashbacks. Like, I know where I was and what every single song, like the 8th grade date, the 9th grade driving in my parents' Chevette.
No, okay, so it's the memories associated with
totally. Them. And all of those, that was around the time that I never got into synthesizers. Like, I like bands. And so you might see that. And there was also a time where I went so deep into classical music, probably from 9th grade to first year of masters at Juilliard. So I was probably 16 to 22 that I missed it all because I was just in the deep end of the pool with classical. And I walked into Tower Records and I said, tell me what I should be listening to. It was 1994. And they said, Nirvana.
Right.
Stone Temple Pilots. Seal, because Seal was huge at that time. Right. That was my MTV Unplugged event that I did. And I think maybe a U2 thing or something. But it was grunge, and it was kind of like the Sade kind of Seal kind of thing going on. And then it was like the U2 was becoming pretty big around that time. And I went home. That's probably on my playlist because it made a huge impression on me.
Well, that's fantastic. And those 80s one-hit wonders, I don't know if it just happens to be, I shared that decade with you. And so I've, they are ingrained on my pop culture, in my pop culture memory. But the earworms, I really feel like they had just an earworm effect that was very unique to that era. It's almost like they, through some strange alchemy, they had perfected the pop earworm, and that was the decade that kind of brought it all together.
I think then, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I feel like there were less people involved in music making back then than there are now. I think there's such a machine of like a formula now, and like with the chord progressions, that includes the movies, by the way. But I really feel like when you look at who wrote what back in those bands back then, it's like one person.
Yeah.
And I love watching the behind the scenes of Queen. I mean, I had Queen's all over my list. That's really interesting to me, and the harmonies, and when you break it down, and without auto tune and those things, and how one of the things that makes Freddie Mercury's voice so interesting is that it is right on pitch, but it's not perfectly on pitch. It's shaking all around the pitch versus just a auto tune laser beam on pitch, which doesn't sound right to me. But Freddie Mercury's voice does sound right to me. So that's still in the 80s. But that's what but most importantly, if you walk in my house, most of the time you'd hear Oscar Peterson, Ella Fitzgerald. It makes me comfortable. And like, that's all time for me. If I want to like turn things up a little bit and feel like, oh, this is great, I'd put the 80s one-hit wonders on.
No, I am so glad you mentioned Oscar Peterson and Ella. They are kind of my comfort music.
Total comfort music.
Yeah.
When I just want to sit and think and be with my friends, and that's what I put on. If I want to if we're all kind of getting, I don't know, that's the one-hit wonders. But Oscar Peterson, Frank Sinatra, it's right in there. Ella Fitzgerald, Oscar Peterson.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. And I'm really glad we went, we did the lightning round questions, because I think we got to see some, I love your love of French fries and 80s music. Maybe there's something there, French fries and 80s music kind of go together.
Yeah. You have to dip them in a milkshake or something, which I never did know. Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.